Yo, what is good, my anime people? What is good, yo? Guys, we have gotten some pretty crazy stuff popping off in Blade of the Immortal daily, but to think that this week's episode was like, nah, we just getting started. We are just kicking it off real quick and showing you not only how crazy it already was from the past, but let's get a little bit crazier. Let's just crank up the crazy a little bit and crank up the crazy they did. Not only do we see this battle between two people who have the ideals of interesting approaches, right? Like one guy would not be here unless the girl that happened to get taken out wasn't if it wasn't the girl he knew and all that stuff happened to her, then nothing would have happened in the case of them meeting up, right? So it all comes down to what this person went out of his way to do to then put himself in a position to be noticed by oh boy, right? And because that happens, we're getting quite a clear cut of what's probably going to continue to happen now that everything amongst the people who are hired and are immortal, we got our white-haired, disgusting man back. Like, this guy is so disgusting that not only does he kind of like just ruin the show in a way of him just taking his own approach at the show. Like, imagine the show breaking down in a couple categories, and then all of a sudden he's introduced and he just makes his own category. He's like, oh, that's the categories I can go by? I'll take the unknown category that I'm about to make. Okay, okay. That's the really cool thing about his character, because I don't think we've seen anything as, straight to the point and forward as the approach that he has taken in this week's episode, right at the jump, just showing us like what we're in for, and scary enough, not even knowing about the ability that our main character has, interesting enough. And I was under the expectation that the reason why he may have lived was because of the worms. And then once he severed the worms from our main character, or the worms, once he severed the arm of our main guy, it also kind of seemed like he had, the ability that, not the ability, but the overall antidote or poison that was needed to hurt the worms in general so they couldn't even regenerate like we saw previously. So that did not seem to be the case, and looks like we'll probably be having to wait a little bit longer to see just what comes with anybody else's knowledge of finding out, how the immortality stuff works and capitalizing on it, right? Because now we have no real idea on who can actually take him out, if the only person who could have took him out was someone who's been alive for all that time and then found out, on his own what hurt the worms, and then he died with that knowledge, not giving it to anyone else, or that, no one's learning what the immortality traits are, so they can't, put two and two together. Not only that, there's not a lot of them roaming around, right? Seemingly, we had the last two fight each other pretty much, so what does that kind of say about him now? Does that make him the last immortal? He knows how to create more of them. Seemingly, all you do is give your blood to someone else, compared to whatever the old lady did to our main character. But I mean, I guess she may just be immortal too, and gave some of her blood to the guy to be, into this position. So it's those types of things I kind of wonder about and look forward to seeing as a whole, because it's interesting nonetheless, right? Like, we're going to see quite a bit of whatever they want to kind of put out as nuance for the immortality ability, And if they want to, weaken it or strengthen it, whatever the case, we don't really get any information about it besides what we got, and now the story kind of just progresses while we're in the dark about it, which is a kind of a cool approach. And to know that this story has dragged, or not dragged, but has caught the attention of my brother, who also is a big anime fan like me, caught his attention enough to rewatch it multiple times. Not only to rewatch it in the oldest form, then the semi-oldest, and then this one, but it's just, I guess, such a captivating story in some regards that he's interested in seeing it in any adaptation. So that's a really good sign for me to continue to watch this without thinking too much about the overall world, like the immortality ability and what could come about it, because it could be called the Blade of the Immortal, but at the same time, that same person, has already had his life threatened and almost died, so he wouldn't be so much of an immortal if he dies off early on, right? So that interested me a lot more in the story, and I definitely want to see, how our main girl is going to get out of this situation yet again, where she finds herself at the hands of the enemy, and truly the one that she wants to take out the most, because he's the one who created all this, he's the one who made this movement, which makes sense, but at the same time, he's not the one who did everything to your father, or to your mother, I should say. Um, so she's holding quite the grudge against him, and by waking up and seeing him as the first person after fainting, whew, I definitely can understand the screams. So let's see how all this plays out. Hope you guys are having an amazing day, night, evening, whatever the case may be. I am your boy, the Anime G, and I will definitely be talking to you sooner than later, because we got some more stuff to talk about on the channel. But unfortunately, Cautious Hero got a review episode, so I won't be doing one for that, or it's like a special or something, so I won't do a review for that, so I will be replacing it with 7 Deadly Sins. But overall, normal day. Have an awesome one, and peace.